Let's do some waiver wire cage matches up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Tuesday, August 27th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. And for my non-wrestling fans out there, the cage match is exactly what it sounds like in wrestling. Cage comes down around the ring, 2 wrestlers enter, mano a mano, and 1 man wins. So that is what we are doing. We are pitting 2 players up against each other who are available on the waiver wire, and we will begin with Pete Crow-Armstrong versus Parker Meadows. Pete Crow-Armstrong had 3 steals on Monday, and over his last 26 games, he is batting .307 with 4 homers and 8 steals. Parker Meadows, since returning from the IL, batting .333 with 2 homers, 5 steals, and a .951 OPS. Scott, you are up. PCA versus Parker Meadows.
Well, these are 2 players that I've been lower than the consensus on. But I'm coming around to both, and it for kind of the same reason. The strikeout rate is much improved. For Pete Crow-Armstrong, it's 22% during his time in the majors this year, which is certainly manageable. And they're letting him roam wild on the bases. So if he's giving himself an opportunity to succeed on contact and he's going to steal that many bases, I think there's a chance he's a true fantasy asset. There's some power there. I don't think there's a ton of power, but there's enough that with all those stolen bases, I think Pete Crow-Armstrong's going to matter. I think we're to a point where we have to roster him in 5 outfielder leagues, maybe even some 3 outfielder leagues if you need help in the stolen base category. So Pete Crow-Armstrong is my choice here because I do think he's going to be the bigger base stealer, but I don't want to just write off Parker Meadows here because also showing big strikeout improvement, about a 16% K rate since returning from the minors. And the peak exit velocities are very high on him but in both the majors and the minors. Average exit velocity a little lower, so there seems to be some issues with consistently making hard contact for Parker Meadows, but he has it in him to hit the ball very hard. And if the strikeouts become less of a concern, also a bit of a base stealer himself, I do think he has a future in fantasy as well.
Let's say you need a slugging corner infielder. Spencer Torkelson, 3 for 5 with his 6th home run, 3 RBI, and has hit well since returning from the minors. And Jean-Kenzie Noel, who has 12 home runs in 43 games with the Guardians. Scott, who are you taking, Torkelson or Noel?
If it was dynasty leagues, I'd definitely say Torkelson. I think former number 1 overall pick. Clearly, there's a pedigree there, and he's shown enough signs of meeting that potential. As bad as he was to start this year, he's shown enough signs that I wouldn't give up on him at a dynasty league. He'd clearly be my choice. But right now, rest of season, Jean-Kenzie Noel, he's been mashing basically since the Guardians called him up, and we've finally gotten to a point where Stephen Vogt is playing him close to every day, and I think for the short term, he's earned a little more of my trust than Torkelson has since it's been going on. Like I said, basically from the get-go. Plus, he's outfield eligible, and in most rotisserie leagues where I'm considering adding somebody, and I need an outfielder more than I need a first baseman. It's a close call, but I'm going to go Noel.
Let's stick with slugging outfielders and 2 names in deeper leagues, 5 outfielder leagues. Matt Walner continues to hit for power since being recalled on July 7th. He is batting .317 with 9 home runs and an OPS over 1,100. MJ Melendez has 3 home runs in his past 6 games. And over his last 23 games total, he's batting .301, 6 home runs, and an OPS over 900. Scott, who would you rather have, Walner or Melendez?
I'd rather have Walner because he's been doing it a lot longer. And I don't want to say I'm totally sold on Walner. I think given that he strikes out at over a 30% rate, and this has been true even since he's come back from the minors, as productive as he's been, given that he's 26-year-old who has never rated particularly high as a prospect, I think there are a lot of downside concerns for Matt Walner. We've seen him run extremely hot and cold in his major league stint, his multiple major league stints so far. He just happens to be really hot right now, and hits the ball hard enough that when he's hot, he's going to hit a lot of home runs. So I think Matt Walner has just been too productive lately to continue to pass him over if you need outfield help. MJ Melendez is heating up too, as you point out. Pretty much starting exclusively against righties now, so that limits his utility. I guess Walner has the same issue, so he may need to play matchups with both of them, but I think we've seen from Walner before that when he gets hot like this, he's just a wrecking ball, and I'm not as convinced that in the short term Melendez is going to be as useful.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.